chain. Tell me why. I wear the chain I forged in life. I made it link by link and yard by yard. Is its pattern strange to you? Or would you know the weight and length of the strong coil you bear yourself? It was as full, as heavy, and as long as this 7 Christmas Eves ago. You have labored on it since. It is a ponderous chain.
That topic came to mind to me this week, the weight of the world on our shoulders. And yes, it's not Christmas and it's not Halloween, but as he said, we might actually be working on those weights, those chains throughout our life without even knowing it. We feel it, and we tend to put the onus on the outside world as to why we feel so heavy, not realizing that we're playing a very important role in weighing ourselves down. And yet we still turn outside and look at the weight of the world. It's the kind of thing where I think we can all relate at some point, if not every day of our life. How many times have you run into a diagnosis for your body or a chronic illness that just, the longer you live, the harder it is to bear? Or maybe your parents are aging and you're committed to being their caregiver and you're trying to live your life as well. You're not really sure what it is that they need and you don't see any end in sight. You could probably relate to that heaviness. We can relate to that heaviness when our loved one passes and we know we're not going to experience them again in this physical life and how much that weighs us down as we miss them from our heart. Maybe it's bankruptcy that you're going through and you're not seeing any way out. You're wondering if you'll ever get credit again, feeling that weight on your shoulders. But it also can be something, just the day-to-day stuff that just keeps going and going. If you're a single parent and you're raising kids, you can imagine what weight there is in that life, that not only you're trying to care for your children and make sure they get to school and they've got meals and they're, doing their homework and they're safe and they're dressed, and then there's your life and then probably your job and a house to take care of, and that can start to feel like that weight of the world on your shoulders. So you name it, we've probably felt it. And it's easy to start blaming what's going on outside for that feeling of heaviness. It's easy, actually, just to, because of your exhaustion, because of your depression, you just want to blame someone, and the quickest person to blame is God. Yeah? Some of us do anyway. We want to decide that it's God's fault that I'm going through this. God must hate me, want to punish me, want to teach me something, want to test me in some way. And we throw our hands up and say, I guess it's all in divine order. We talk about divine order in that respect as a spiritual bypass. We use those spiritual phrases when we're not even really sure what they mean. So let me just make it clear right now that it's not God that's testing us, and that's not what divine order is, that God on a throne decides today you will suffer and it will last for a long time. I can almost get down as deep as the voice of God. So let's not start there. Let's give God a chance. When I hear that, I always think, poor God, he gets blamed for everything. How about if we take some time today, no matter what's causing from the outer, what's causing the weight on our shoulders, to consider what is really happening from the spiritual dimension. First and foremost, when Jesus said, seek first the kingdom, he was trying to give us the best out from underneath this weight. Start with God. Start remembering that Spirit is present here and now. And it's not punishing and it's not testing. It's not depriving. There is no God giveth and God taketh away. There is a presence that loves, that is the wisdom in your heart, that is the creativity to get past this situation. There is the comfort and the peace. It is a presence that takes us beyond the physical dimension. So imagine, just this week, I needed to call Silent Unity. I wanted to call Silent Unity. If you're not familiar, that's Unity's 24/7 prayer ministry. And there's all kinds of ways you can reach out to them. So go to silentunity.org or unity.org and check it out. And as soon as they answered the call, it was a recording that said, our prayer associate will be with you shortly. And I expected irritating music to play, but instead, I got this very gentle voice reminding me of the truth. I was reminded immediately that God is present. Just turn your thoughts in that direction for a moment and remember what God is: our life, our love, our substance, our supply, the intelligence that we're seeking. Start there. That's where we want to go. Knowing that this divine activity is treating us all the same. As Jesus said, God's sun shines on the righteous and the unrighteous. So we don't have to worry that we don't deserve it or we're not good enough or that we're in trouble. Start by just being accepted, knowing that you are fully accepted as you are, unconditionally. That should give you a big sigh of relief. And that there is not a will of God that's trying to deprive us of anything. One of the highest orders of the universe is we have free will, and even God will not override that. Although you are God, I know it's complicated. See me afterwards for that long story. But just acknowledge that there is no will above your own, and that you can choose in this moment. You can choose how you want to approach this, how you want to be in this moment. This omnipotence that we talk about of God is not a power that wields and deprives. It's a power that responds. In neutral, it responds to us. And it's responding to what we are, who we are, what we believe, as Jesus said. It's responding not so much to our activity as much as it is our energy. That's the way that the universe was designed. We've got a universal law that's just waiting for us to send something out, some signal with our little and we get in those wild and crazy energetic modes. And it's funny how the universe just mirrors it right back to you. That was kind of funny. Good job. Okay. So I want you to think more about your being, what you are being, than what you are doing that can activate the divine law. And Jesus, I think, was trying to make this clear when he was talking to his disciples in Matthew chapter 5 up here on the screen. He said, "You've heard that it was said that you shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. You've heard it said, you shall not commit adultery. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart." It's the thought, it's the feeling energy that activates the divine law in response. Even though we may be saying that all is well, that all is in divine order, if within us we are tied up in knots and feeling depressed by this weight, that is the signal that we send out to the universe. So today I want us to take a look at 3 points of view here that will help us figure out how to get out from underneath this weight. And the weight that's most common to us is the energy that we're sending out. So the first thing that we want to do here is pay attention to what our dominant energy is that we are being. You know what I mean when I say energy, right? You know what it feels like in your body to be afraid or angry. It's a strong enough energy that you feel not only emotions, but you can start to feel physical responses in the body. So just get quiet and look back over your life, not just in the last week or two, but in the last year or two. What has been your dominant energy? What is the most common feeling that you are sending out to the universe? I'm going to do this because Sonia did it to herself, so I'm going to tell you what Sonia said. Sonia Choquette wrote a book called Soul Lessons and Soul Purpose. And she gives a good demonstration of how it doesn't really matter what you're saying, it matters what you're feeling. She was doing a seminar at a hotel, and part of her compensation was to be paid with a spa treatment while she was there. So let me tell you her story. I went to the spa. This is between classes that she's teaching during the week. I went to the spa for my complimentary and well-deserved, as I believe, 80-minute mud wrap. Okay, you have that, which I've been looking forward to for 3 months. Okay, ever since it had been offered as part of my compensation. And she said that when she arrived to the counter, there were several participants from her class kind of milling around. So to her surprise, the attendant told her that she had no appointment. Irritated, but aware that I was being watched, I smiled and gently insisted that she look again. Now, I want you to just pay attention to her energy, not her words, okay? Pay attention to her energy. She snapped that she'd already checked and that I was mistaken. I replied that I had a confirmation letter for the session. Go get it, she said curtly, and let me see it. I retrieved the note from my room, further aggravated that 10 minutes of my treatment were now gone. And she casually glanced at it, looked at her computer, and said, nah, that's a mistake. You still have no appointment. And she turned her attention to the next client. Aware that I was now being observed by at least 10 of my students, I patiently said, so this means I get no treatment? Basically, yes, she answered, without a lick of remorse or concern for my feelings, and again went back to her work. Staring in disbelief at her dismissal and thinking, don't you know who I am? But knowing that I was under scrutiny, I quietly said, so as the teacher of this large group, I'm out of luck? Pretty much, she retorted, not even remotely interested in faking regret. Wanting very much to blow up, I nevertheless refrained, knowing that I couldn't indulge my ego after telling my class to handle life with grace. Now you know what I feel like, people. But today I'm having a good day, so relax. Okay. Clearly the universe was having fun with me. I merely smiled and said, okay. You'll have to get her book to read the rest of the story. Oh, but basically she doesn't get her treatment. Let's just put it that way. But did you hear the things that were underneath? The frustration, the need to blow up, but she didn't because she had to show a good front. Well, guess what? The universe doesn't read your words. It reads your energy. And I'm sorry to use you as an example, Sonia, but let me just say that sometimes things like that happen because we have a disturbable energy. And that if we can learn how to look to the universe for our good instead of the woman behind the counter, and we can live that way most of the time. Yes, I know this is hard, but I'm just saying, if you can do this, then you tend to rise above those situations. You don't even interact with those kind of situations because you're living outside of a disturbable zone. You're living above it. Does that make sense? Okay. So at this point, perhaps she was not aligned with her higher spiritual self. She was kind of down in the weeds. And I'm going to ask you that when you find yourself in this type of energy, just check in with what it is that you believe. Do you believe that this hotel has the power to take your good from you, or that you can find that good elsewhere? Do you believe that you don't deserve this kind of good? Do you believe that there's not enough for everybody to get their good? Because any one of those beliefs takes you down into the weight zone where everything is piling up on top of you and it's difficult to get out from underneath it. When you notice it and you can understand what belief you're holding on to, you want to ask yourself, and what is true? What is true about that everywhere present Spirit of God that has what I need? I know it's invisible, but it can manifest into something physical if we will start by looking at the invisible, the Spirit, the love, the supply, the wisdom. That's one of our jobs here when we're on this list of to-dos. What is my dominant energy? What is the belief behind it? What is the truth of it? And can I start looking towards that instead to get ourselves out from underneath that weight? And another point of view that I want us to consider when we are feeling overwhelmed by the weight of the world is to ask ourselves, what is the collective consciousness going on right now? In other words, when there's a whole bunch of people going through the same thing at the same time, and it's not good, how does it feel? And can you get out from underneath that? I mean, some real common examples are, right now, how many different organizations are on strike? Yeah. And so even though you may be a worker, a union worker, if you were on strike by yourself, you'd probably have one point of view. But when you put a lot of people together going through that same thing, it might carry you into a point of view that you wouldn't get there on your own. And you may not even notice that you're doing it. I mean, think about those who were born in poverty and their generations before them were born in poverty, and that's all that you know is poverty. So you just are born under this weight, and you continue to carry this weight because you don't know that there's an option. Think about how America looks at those who are over 65. There's a collective consciousness about seniors. And you come to my Aging with Spirit group, you guys are coming to the Aging with Spirit group, and we're learning how to get beyond, out from underneath that weight. But we have to be aware of it first. Every time America goes into an election season, these two bumps come up and start beating each other. They're made up of millions and millions of people, but it appears that they're acting as one, and we're being carried along with it unless we wake up to it. Otherwise, it can feel like a weight. We saw it during COVID. We were all in the entire world holding a couple different points of view. One was fear, the other was judgment, and it was very easy to get carried away under that heaviness because we weren't recognizing that we had an option. I remember when 9/11 happened, and up until that, just after 9/11, there had been a big event planned at our church. It'd been being planned for a long time before 9/11. But when it came, 9/11 came, and we were dealing with it, and now we got to this big event at a Unity church, I couldn't go. I felt such a weight from what had happened. I could not leave the house for some kind of celebration. My heart wasn't in it. I was feeling the weight of the world. And sometimes we don't know that it's happening. We don't know that we have an option. But something that Abraham Hicks says up here on the screen, there's not enough action in the world to accommodate for a slow vibration. There's a big difference between allowing your natural well-being and trying to make it happen. So if we want to be free of this collective consciousness, it's not because we're going to fight our way out of it. We have to allow that stronger presence of good and God that's underneath it to lift us up, to expect it to be there and carry us forward. And our third experience that we want to use when we're trying to get out from under this weight is to consider that our spirit brought us into it. That stinks. But remember who you are. Remember that you came in here as a spirit. Just because this was, I probably shouldn't use the word playground, but it is kind of an activity field. We came into this physical activity field specifically so that we could run up against walls. And as we hit them, instead of like just rolling over and feeling like crush me, when we hit them, we look at them, we see where they are, where they came from, why they're here, and how we want to get over it. And in that process, it gives the opportunity for our spirit to grow. Even though we think these outer circumstances are the ones that are dominating our life, there's actually these divine spiritual powers within us that are seeking expression. And that's why we ran into this wall in the first place, so that these divine potentials within us can come forward. Something that Sonia said from her book said, you do not face difficulties as punishment. You attract them because you're moving to the next level of understanding of your sacred nature. Are you ready for that? Ready for the next level? Oh, come on, your ego does not want to do that at all. So, we'll let Jesus remind us. This is from the book of John, chapter 9. He said, his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? So they'd come upon this man sitting on the ground, and evidently they knew that he had been born blind. And Jesus said, neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him. So do we look at that story and say, God made somebody be born blind? He robbed them of their sight before they could be born? This is why we look at the scriptures metaphysically, because we don't think that there's a God up there that says, you will come in and suffer. We think there's our spirit in the spiritual dimension that says, I want to come in and experience that, but there's nothing overriding our will. Remember that. So when we talk about this being born blind, look at it metaphysically. When we as spiritual beings entered into the physical experience, what happened? What happened to our vision? We lost it. We forgot. We had that veil come over our eyes, specifically so that we forgot, could not see who we really were, so that we could run into the wall and then let our eyes open, allow our eyes to open and take steps towards re-being ourself as spirit. So when we're under the weight of the world, first thing is we want to turn within and seek to hear that inner voice. Not, what did I do wrong, but who do I want to be now? This is a chance for me to shine. There's a story in Sonia's book that's her name is Amy, and Amy, she's 24. She has a 9-month-old and a 2-year-old. And her husband is serving in Iraq. She's living along the Louisiana coastline. And the Hurricane Katrina comes along and wipes out her home, all of her belongings. Here she is with 2 little kids, 24 years old. The only thing she can think to do is go home to her parents in New Jersey. And it turns out they're both alcoholics and hate each other. And as soon as she gets there, they go into a raging fight. And her mother throws him out of the house and says, I'm getting a divorce. Is that really where she wants to be right now? So she turns towards her in-laws and goes to stay with them, who love her and are grateful to have her, but the father-in-law just had a stroke, and the mother-in-law was just diagnosed with cancer. So here she is with the weight of the world on her shoulders, 2 little ones to care for. I'm feeling alone in the world. And she comes to Sonia for some counseling. And Sonia says, what do you think could be behind this that could serve your spirit? Now, that's a question that we rarely ask when we are under the weight of the world. What's behind this that could serve my spirit? And she thought about it for a while, and here's what she said. I've just faced my greatest fear of having nothing and no one to count on. And although I said that I can't take it, I'm finding that not only can I survive these hardships, I'm realizing just how tough I am. With no one to turn or run to, I've had to turn inward. And surprisingly, I found a well of strength I didn't know I had. Even though it's been difficult, I'm sure that I'm going to get through this. It's been my habit to get so panicked and freak out. The truth is, I'm coping with it all rather well, if I say so myself. She was being led to achieve her heart's desire. She had a desire to become a strong, secure person, able to trust in herself, able to care for herself, to take charge of what was going on in her life. It appears that her spirit had called her to the place where she could do that. And now it was her chance to decide, who do I want to be? She decided she wanted to create something stronger out of this mess. And as a result, she's now in a higher dimension. Her energy has risen to where she is more aligned with her spirit. That's where the miracles happen. So as soon as she got there and got into her conscious awareness of who she really was, the armed forces sent her husband home early. they moved them to San Diego, which was the place of all the places in the country to live. That's where they wanted to live. They got moved to San Diego. They paid for their housing. And they were given a chance to have a whole new life, better than the one that they had before. It was available to her now because she was up above the weight. She was in that dimension where she could be accessible to the good that's all around us. When we're under the weight, the typical response from the ego is to lie down and just let it bury us. But when we can check in with our spirit and realize what power it has, it's an opportunity for us to become secure and aligned, and then we're ready for those gifts that Spirit has for us. So if there were just a simple summary of what's going on when you start to feel the weight of the world, I would say that the circumstances that are happening in this moment are of three things. One is the dominant energy that I'm feeling and have been feeling for a while. The second is the collective consciousness energy that I've been allowing myself to be carried by. And thirdly, my higher self is guiding me to fulfill my purpose for coming. It could be one of those or all three of those. But that's where you might want to just start. What's my dominant energy? What's the dominant energy of the collective consciousness that I might be part of? And what is my higher self drawing me towards to fulfill my purpose? So there's a few questions we can ask to get the juices flowing here that I've got up on the screen. You can take a picture when we're done. There's going to be 10 of them. I'm going to go quick. Or if you want to look on our website at unityinnaperville.org after the service in a couple days, these slides will be up there so you can grab the questions there. But here they are up here on the screen. The first is just notice what kind of patterns keep happening to you. Do you keep hooking up with the wrong person that's always got the same problems that basically feels like you're a loser for choosing them? Or is the pattern that every time you get well, you get sick again? Is the pattern that every time you get money, you can't seem to hold on to it? Notice the patterns that have been going on for your life for a while. And what are the negative emotions that you live under on a regular basis? Are you generally a fearful person, a cynical person, an irritated person? Because any one of those emotions are signals that we're out of alignment, that we're believing something. That's another question, is what's the belief behind those emotions? And what's the truth of spirit in this? We also want to just check in and see if we feel deprived right now, if somebody is forcing us to do something. Is that where you're at right now and that's why you feel so heavy? Then ask yourself, where does my power of divine will come in? If nothing can override my will, how am I not using it? How can I use it? Remembering that God's will is only for my good, but it will not choose the specifics. I get to choose how I want to deal with whatever's happening to me. And also we might want to just ask, how can I, or what should I reveal in my divine potential? We talk about our 12 spiritual powers here. I'm going to say them really quick. Faith, strength, wisdom, love, the ability to choose our thoughts, we call that power, imagination, understanding, will, our enthusiasm, order, release, or life. Do any one of those powers seem useful right now? Pay attention to what it is you're going through. If it's chronic illness in the body, then we want to move more into the power of life and strength and enthusiasm. If we're struggling with paying our bills, that's a lack of faith in the divine substance, the energy that's all around us that becomes the things that we need to spend. There's always a divine power within us that if we look at that instead of the problem, it will start to express and raise us up above that which has a weight on us. So what's the power? What's the potential here? And is life in this situation right now, this thing that feels so heavy, is it redirecting me somewhere? Is it trying to point me towards something new that would be a challenge for my spirit? Is it going to give me a new opportunity? Is it going to help me fulfill my purpose for even being here on the planet? Any one of those questions will open your heart and give you an opportunity to breathe in and see what Spirit has to say. You remember last week when Reverend Shirley Lawson was here? And then the week before when I talked on the topic of guidance? I talked on guidance, she talked on prayer, meditation, and silence. All those are going to come in handy when you go through this list. So if you missed those messages, go back to our website and look at the archives for those last 2 weeks. And recognize that every answer you're seeking begins within your own heart. Every weight that is on our shoulders can be lifted by the truth that is within us. So how about if we take some time in the quiet and let's see if we can get there. This might be one of those moments where you just feel this heaviness. And so the first thing we want to do is seek to lighten the body and the emotions. We begin with a deep breath from way down in our belly and release it. Breathe in again and release. This next time as you release, just feel that weight going out with your breath. In, out. Our thoughts scan our body from the top of our head down to our toes. Just take your time with that and see if there's any weight, any heaviness, any resistance in the body. You run against some of that. Just breathe love into that area and release the weight. And feel the chair beneath you, securely holding you, so that you can even further relax and let go. Feel your feet on the floor, connected to this gigantic planet beneath you. A mother that is supporting you, and let your weight further sink into this Mother Earth. Just notice your own energy of being, and ask, what is the dominant energy I have been living from in the last year? If you're not sure, then shorten it to the last month. What emotions do I feel most often? If they're less than hopeful, see if you can find what belief you're holding that's supporting those emotions. What thought is causing me to feel worried, frustrated, bitter, helpless. No matter the details, ask yourself, does it have something to do with not enough? Open your heart now to the presence, the mind, the love of God here and now. Allow yourself to feel that presence in your heart as a light that is getting brighter and brighter as you look at it. Until this light spills out beyond the confines of your heart and into your entire body. I know this light is always here, no matter my outer circumstances. This light is my health and life. It spills out of my mind as creative ideas and wisdom. This light is the energy I form to pay my bills. And it goes on forever. This light is the love that sees me as whole, that accepts me as I am. This loving light is drawing to me like a magnet the good that this universe has for me. As I allow this light to flow freely through my body, my mind, my emotions, I am set free from any weight. As I bathe in this light, I give thanks. I do not need to know the hows or the details. I am lifted simply by knowing it is there. And I gratefully receive all that it has for me. I am the light of the world. And with my power of will, I choose to be this light and know my inner wisdom. With my imagination, I discover new solutions to all that I need. With this power of life, I strengthen, I move, I'm flexible, I am alive. And And through the power and the vision of love thriving in me, I look out at my life and choose to rise above into that dimension where there is only good. Through the eyes of love, I choose to see that good and be that good. I am lifted. I am free. I am the fullness of God expressing. And so it is. Amen.